All right, good day. I'm so happy to be here in the companion of such amazing group of people. Uh, Thank you for joining. And also, thank you for those who are joining live, but also those who are eventually watching the recording. It's such a pleasure to have you here. My name is Rodrigo Orzari. I'm from DigitalOcean, and today I'm going to be your host in this amazing webinar that we're running in collaboration with our friends from Zeet. So today's presenter on webinar about simplifying application hosting and scaling with Zeet and DigitalOcean is led by our friends Jack Dwyer from Zeet. I also have Jack Pierce joining us from the UK. And by the way, I'm from Seattle. Jack is from San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. We also have here the companion of Johnny Dallas, so CEO and founder of Zeet. Um, you can make us questions in the comments. We're going to be watching the questions that you eventually are going to be making. And even if you are watching the recording, maybe you're going to be able to email us to make any follow up questions if you wish. But without further ado, let's get started. And I will handle the to you, Jack Dwyer, so you can kick us off and introducing us Zeet. And by the way, we're going to have an amazing demo. I heard about it. And I look forward to seeing that demo here with you. But I'm going to be watching the questions coming in the comments. So keep them coming. Thank you, everyone. Jack, over to you.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Rodrigo. Howdy, folks. I'm Jack Dwyer. I'm a product marketing manager at Zeet, and today we're going to discuss a little bit about how you can use Zeet but plus DigitalOcean to enable developer self-service, speed your team up, and essentially make Kubernetes something you don't think about anymore. It's just kind of taken care of. So we'll hop into it. I'll share a little bit about what Zeet is and how we work. Zeet is a platform that, as discussed, we make it really easy to build on Kubernetes, whether it be applications, services, infrastructure. We take care of it. Um, Zeet integrates with pretty much every part of your stack. Obviously, CI/CD and deployment are something we do very strongly. We'll talk about that a little more in a second. But also networking and observability, and we integrate with pretty much all of your tools as well. But we'll get into that shortly. Um, so as mentioned, here are some of the features of Zeet. We got our start as a CI/CD and deployment platform. We work with most of the kind of big frameworks here. So Terraform, Helm, Kubernetes as well, of course. We also work with serverless functions, service and job containers. So really, we cover the whole suite. Beyond that, though, we have also spent quite a bit of time over the last, I would say, year developing sort of our observability and monitoring solutions. So we have built-in logs and metrics that come with all of your infrastructure. We also do kind of native networking, so things that would otherwise take a half hour or maybe have some complexity. With Zeet, we've kind of abstracted them away to just be one button click. Um, and beyond that, once things are live, we have a fairly robust notifications engine for your build, your deploy, and also your pod crash alerts. So if you do have some notification or some combination of notifications, you can configure those to send to various channels. Maybe you have Slack, Discord, or email. We can do all of that. Um, and you can do all of this from one consolidated dashboard. So we'll see in the demo in just a few minutes uh, how this all kind of lives under one roof. And again, we do the Kubernetes for you, whether it be provisioning and operating a cluster, keeping it running, or scaling it to kind of new heights as you grow your cloud footprint. Um, all of this is controllable through various interfaces. So of course we have the dashboard. Um, we also have an API. So a lot of our customers are kind of like SaaS programmatic customers, uh, meaning maybe they have some platform that as users join, they need to spin up new infrastructure kind of automatically. And they do that really easily with Z. We've had customers who they'll go viral on Twitter and have to spin up 100,000 replicas, and they did that in just a few minutes. They didn't even open their laptop. It was something that just kind of got taken care of, and that's sort of the power of our API. For some of you terminal junkies out there, we have a CLI, of course, and then lastly, this is a pretty recent addition. We have a Terraform provider. So um, Terraform allows you to kind of graft everything as code. all your infrastructure, and now you can control your whole cloud footprint using the Terraform provider by essentially controlling Zeet and by proxy controlling your entire cloud footprint. And we are multi-cloud. So as you can see on the right here, we're multi-cloud. We support 7 clouds at this time. DigitalOcean, of course, and then some of the other kind of big and small cloud providers, just depending on what you're looking for. Um, Say you have infrastructure scattered across multiple clouds, or if you want to move infrastructure. One thing we find that's actually kind of a hidden use case, but a pretty cool one, is if you have infrastructure on, say, Vulture, and you wanted to move it over to DigitalOcean, you can do that with essentially a toggle press, or rather a drop down. You can, go to your project, find the basically cloud provider you want to deploy your application or service to, and select it. So you could move everything to DigitalOcean in basically 5 minutes. It's pretty cool that way. Um, Beyond that, we have infrastructure as code, so Terraform, Helm, and Kubernetes, and we also integrate quite well with most sort of registries and repositories. So obviously your typical VCS, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. But if you want to deploy something, say from the Terraform registry or Docker Hub, um, you can just basically bring the link in. Zeet will be able to talk to those services and pull in the infrastructure, and you can just deploy. Um, yeah, and this all sort of is powered through our deployments engine. And the foundation, I would say, the foundational element of Zeet deployments is our project types. Project types are sort of guided workflows to help you deploy things, whether they be service containers. So these are maybe longer running things that live on Kubernetes clusters, job containers. We see a lot of our AI customers doing this for kind of like agent based workflows, serverless functions. So this is um, just the typical kind of serverless things you can think of, as well as Terraform, Helm, and Kubernetes. Um, if you already know what you want to deploy, though, maybe you don't need a guided experience, or you just want a database or a load balancer. We have dozens of sort of pre-configured blueprints, we call them. These are configured by us. Our team of cloud engineers kind of knows what they're doing in a lot of this stuff. So what they've done is um, basically created templates that you can grab off the shelf. You know that best practices are already in place. If you want to deploy a MySQL database, with the sort of just good enough configuration, you can do that. But you can also dig into the blueprint and actually configure things yourself. Um, and if there are things you think, okay, I actually want to deploy this over and over again, or maybe there's some compliance constraint that your organization requires, you can take one of our off-the-shelf blueprints or bring your own infrastructure as code and turn it into a custom blueprint. Uh, Custom blueprints allow your team to deploy something that's configured by your team. So maybe you're a platform engineer or just a senior developer who wants to configure something, and then anybody on your team can deploy that thing over and over again. Um, and of course, once things are live, you want to organize them. So we have the typical dev, test, and staging workflows you would expect. These are ephemeral environments, so you can test things kind of end to end in a high fidelity way. Preview branches to do a little more atomized testing, but then also environment variables and secrets. And then once you move over to production, we have some pretty cool features around access control. So only specific developers on your team could maybe access production. Maybe everyone can view production, but only one developer actually has the keys to ultimately push code to production. You can configure it however you'd like, but these are some of our features around environments. Um, and then again, once your code is live, you've got it kind of organized how you'd like. We do have a fairly robust sort of observability and monitoring stack. So all of the infrastructure deployed on Zeet comes with sort of like a Prometheus sidecar loaded in. So you're getting metrics and logs sent straight into Zeet. And from there, we have quite a few features around monitoring. We have a status tab. With this status tab, you can essentially see all of your infrastructure from a bird's eye view. And if anything is raising any sort of alerts or flags, you'll be able to see them in the status tab. Click into those and quickly resolve whatever issue may be happening. Beyond that, we have like a diff viewer we call revisions. With this, you can see what's changed between different deployments, or if you're configuring a cluster, you can see kind of through time who made the changes, when the changes were made, and ultimately what changed. Making it very easy to, if you need to roll back something, either using the Zeet kind of native rollback feature, um, or just manually change it yourself. You can do that. Again, we also have notifications. So every notification comes with a crash snapshot, which you can click into and get basically a debrief of everything that was going on with your cluster when the issue happened. So you can easily debug those, and those can again be configured to your Slack, your Discord, or your Gmail. Before we hop into the demo, I wanted to quickly discuss a pretty cool case study. So LiveKit is a company that actually started on Zeet. Their founders were multi-time founders. They kind of knew that infrastructure, it's something you obviously have to have, but you don't have to manually set it all up. I think there are tools for the job, and they knew that Zeet was one of those tools. So as LiveKit has sort of grown, this has been, I would say, over 2 or 3 years. They've scaled to 30 clusters across 4 different clouds, and all of this is just managed with 2 infrastructure engineers. These infrastructure engineers also kind of double as DevOps engineers, so they're supporting the developers in some ways. And so they have 30 clusters, 4 clouds, and 15 developers. But it doesn't slow them down. With Zeet, they're kind of confident they can handle all of this. And it's not just the infrastructure engineers who actually benefit, but it is also the developers. Um, as developers gain confidence with Zeet, because we have such robust sort of deployment CI/CD features, but also operate features that keep things running, allow for easy debugging, teams just naturally move faster on Zeet. And you can see this quote; it kind of well encapsulates that. This is from David Zhao, or DZ as he kind of goes, CTO of LiveKit. Essentially, developers don't have to worry about deployment anymore. They can just focus on building, and that's kind of what we try to do. It's let's take the infrastructure work off of your plate. Let's let you focus on the high value work, and we'll handle the rest. So now I think we'll hop over to a quick demo showcasing how Zeet works. Johnny will give the demo along with Jack Pierce, so we can hop into that.
Hey everybody, I'm Johnny Dallas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zeet. I'm excited to show you today how we can use Zeet plus DigitalOcean's Kubernetes service, DOKS, to deploy a SaaS application without having to become a Kubernetes expert or learn a ton about Kubernetes. Here with Jack, I'm really excited to show you how Zeet and DigitalOcean work together. Let's jump into it. How you feeling today, Jack?
Hey everybody, I'm Jack. I work as a solutions architect for DigitalOcean. Been with DigitalOcean for about 2 years now, so I serve as a technical resource for the customer success team.
Awesome. So today what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a DOKS cluster, which is DigitalOcean Kubernetes service with Zeet, and we're going to deploy a couple of simple applications to it. We're going to deploy a pretty simple SaaS stack. It's going to include a Postgres SQL container and a Node.js API deployed from GitHub. In addition to simply deploying the DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster, we're going to deploy a number of supporting resources that help you get the most out of that cluster, including a CI/CD pipeline, an autoscaler, and the Zeet dashboard, which will allow you to view the state of your application and manage it without having to go and write a bunch of manifests or become an expert with kubectl. So to get started here, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you a brand new Zeet team with nothing set up in it. Zeet, as a high level, is a Kubernetes deployment platform. We help you deploy your applications to Kubernetes clusters around the world very, very simply. You'll see here we're already being prompted to deploy our first project. We're going to be deploying our own repos, but before we get into that, we're going to link our DigitalOcean account to Zeet so that we can deploy to that DOKS cluster. To do that, we're going to go over here on the left, and we're going to click on the Clouds button. This is where I can manage all the cloud connections that I have in my Zeet account. You'll see that right now we don't have any clouds connected, as this is a brand new team. So we're going to click this green Connect Cloud button. Here we're going to see all the different providers that Zeet supports first class. That's cloud providers that we deploy to. We're going to go with our friends here, DigitalOcean. I'll click DigitalOcean, and I'll be prompted to very simply provide an API key. This is a very easy way to authenticate DigitalOcean and Zeet together. You're not going to have to go and become IAM experts or spend too much time here. All you have to do is go into DigitalOcean and grab an API key. Yeah, so this is the DigitalOcean API key section. This is where we're going to create a new API key to authenticate Zeet to DigitalOcean. It's very simple. All I'm going to have to do here is click this big blue Generate New Token button. we prompted for a new name. We're going to call this new token. Choose a duration for expiry. We generally recommend the no expire unless you want to go in and update this every 90 days. This will need to be up to date for us to be able to access your DigitalOcean account and deploy resources to it. Then we will need to be checking this write optional button here. This allows us to actually create the DOKS cluster and modify it. You don't want us to just be reading what's in there, or else we're not going to be very helpful. Last but not least, I'll click this big blue generate token button, and you'll see token successfully created. We're going to want to copy the value right here. We're only going to see this once, so make sure you copy it here, or else you're going to have to do this process again. And this will be what you paste into Zeet. I'll come back into Zeet and paste it right here.
So hey Johnny, quick question. Do I need to have created a cluster already here, or will Zeet create it for me?
Yeah, great question. You don't have to do anything other than this to get started. Zeet is going to provision your DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster right after this. All this is doing is giving us access to your DigitalOcean API key, your DigitalOcean account via API key, so that we can do these actions on your path.
Okay, awesome.
So I'll click this connect button right here, and hopefully in a second here we'll see, boom, just like that, we are connected. So now Zeet has access to my DigitalOcean account, and I can do things like provision clusters, deploy applications, and generally manage my DigitalOcean account from here. Clicking back to my Clouds tab, I can see that I've got my cloud connected. I don't have anything deployed into it yet. I have 0 projects and 0 clusters, but we are authenticated, which is great. To your point, Jack, the next step here is we have to create that cluster. So we're going to go over to the Clusters tab here on the left, and you'll see that similar to the Clouds page we viewed a second ago, we have no clusters quite yet. So we're going to click this Connect Cluster button, and once again, we prompted for all the different cloud providers that we have integrations with, and then we can deploy clusters onto. We're doing DOKS today, and so I'll click this Provision DOKS Cluster button, and we'll be asked where do we want to provision our new cluster. Since we already have an account linked, you'll see it shows up right here, and I can choose the name of my cluster. I'm going to call this new DO cluster, new DOKS cluster, and I'm going to deploy it in New York, as that's where I'm currently located. You'll note here, there is a note about the cluster cost. Kubernetes clusters in general do have some overhead on the infra side, and so there's a warning here about the expected spend on your DO account.
And Johnny, just in regards to the cluster that gets created, the nodes that make up that cluster, how does Zeet decide how many nodes to create?
Yeah, so by default, our clusters, first off, they're open source. Second off, they come with a bunch of baked-in best practices. Part of that is a number of different node groups that allow us to spin up instances of different sizes, but make sure that your default cluster is as small as possible so that you don't have extraneous spend. Additionally, there are a couple of services that we deploy alongside the cluster beyond the simple cluster services, including Autoscaler, a Prometheus metric server, various services for managing the SSL certs, external DNS, and the network stack on the cluster itself. Zeet is going to configure all of these and use all of these to provide a really simple experience, but there is some overhead in the cluster size because of that.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to have a bootstrap cluster essentially. Because I know for me, you know, Kubernetes is it can be a little bit daunting for people who haven't used it before, and you know, it's just an API at the end of the day. But getting that cluster ready for, you know, production, not just development but production, is there's a lot to it. So I think if Zeet is going to, you know, sort the certificate management, sort the ingress, then yeah, that's less weeks of work potentially solved.
Exactly. I think Kubernetes can be a bit daunting. Managed offerings like DOKS definitely make it easier to maintain, and then Zeet comes in and makes it super accessible and easy for developers to get running with very quickly. The idea is, you know, with DOKS and Zeet, you can get 0 to production in a couple hours a day, which is pretty incredible compared to other Kubernetes options. All I have to do here is I'll click this Create Cluster button, and what Zeet will do is it will kick off a Terraform run and spin up that cluster in my account. This does take a little bit of time, just due to the nature of the beast of what we're spinning up. So we'll have a bit of a pause here as this cluster gets created, but when we come back, we will be able to deploy our applications to it. All right, and we're back. Just a little bit of a time skip there. We have our cluster fully provisioned. So this is what you're going to see in Zeet now that that DigitalOcean cluster is up and running. Similar to the cloud page, we're going to see a couple of informational things like the name of the cluster. We can rename that if we'd like. The internal cluster ID that Zeet uses. But we'll also see the domain name that Zeet provisioned for this cluster. We'll see which account it is deployed to, which region, what Docker credentials it's going to be using, and most importantly, all of the components that we were talking about a moment ago that we provisioned by default. So you'll see a full list here, everything from cert manager to external DNS to Kita, which is a great autoscaler, a metric server, Prometheus deployment, and traffic. So now that I've got my cluster up and running, let's go and deploy a new project onto it. To do that, I'm going to click this new button in the top right, and I'm going to click new project. This is the core way that in Zeet you're going to deploy new services, new workloads, new GitHub repositories. Zeet supports a number of different services that we can deploy, everything from long-running services packaged up in Docker containers to short jobs if you want to run, say, some data pipeline or just trigger something on schedule. They'll support serverless functions, deployment of Terraform stacks, and raw Kubernetes manifests and Helm charts if you're a bit more advanced on Kubernetes. All of these are going to come with best practices, CI/CD pipeline, and a number of unique features based on the workload you're deploying, so you don't have to learn too much about the underlying details. For us today, we're going to be deploying a Postgres container and a Node.js API as a long-running service, and so we're going to deploy 2 service containers. To do that, I'm going to click here on service container, I'll click this create button, and I'll be asked what I want to deploy, where do I want to deploy from. I've already linked my GitHub account, and so you'll see a bunch of different GitHub repos loading in from across all my orgs. And I believe that I have a Node Express API right here. So I'll type some search in, and I'll click select. I'm happy to include the link to this GitHub repo afterwards, but I promise you there's nothing magic about it. It's a very basic Node.js Express with the index.js. I'll click continue here, and it'll ask me where I want to deploy to. We're going to stick with our beautiful DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster that we just spent that time setting up, such as Node.js. Well, we'll actually detect that this is Node.js. We'll detect the version, and we'll read the package JSON to generate a Docker file for you. So you don't have to become a Docker expert. This applies for Node.js, Next.js, React sites, Python, Django applications, Golang applications, Elixir and Phoenix applications. Though if you are a little more advanced and you do have a Docker file, we can build using that as well. There's a question here about what resources I'd like to provide. Right now it's set to 1 CPU, 1 gig of RAM, no spot instances, no persistent volumes. That's fine to me. I think in a true production setup, I might want a little bit more resource, but for today, that'll be fine. And then last but not least, on the networking side, it looks like this did detect that it's a web service and assumed port 3000, which in this case happens to be correct. And so we're going to leave this as is. Since we have this set, Zeet is going to provision a full load balancer, SSL cert, put it on a zeet.app domain. So we'll be able to access this live with SSL cert and a production-ready networking stack on the get-go. Today, we've created a webinar group, and we're going to create a new group for the live demo and put it in there. We'll keep it called Node Express Demo, nice and simple, easy to remember, and we'll click this deploy button. Now, this is a live demo, but assuming everything goes right, what we'll see here is Zeet will pull the GitHub repo, will instantly kick off a build on that DOKS cluster that we provisioned earlier, and we will hopefully build this image up. If the build succeeds, we'll push it to a container registry. We'll then pull it from the container registry onto the cluster, spin it up, run some health checks, and in just a few seconds here, we should have a live endpoint. And looks like we did. We moved over to deployed state just like that. And in just a second here, ta-da, we've got the confetti. Confetti is always the light at the end of the tunnel for me in live demos. We made it.
And Johnny, for people that are familiar with Kubernetes, what is actually created here? Is it just a pod, or is it a deployment?
Yeah, good question. A lot of Zeet is about abstracting away some of the complexity and keeping it simple. But because, once again, this is your cloud that we're deploying to, it's really important for us to show you those details. So I could answer that, but actually, I'll just scroll down here, and on the deploy step here, we've got this view manifest button. If I click that, you'll see the exact manifest that we're deploying onto your Kubernetes cluster. So
Okay, nice.
yeah, in this case, we're deploying a few things. We're deploying a secret. We're deploying a deployment with a bunch of annotations and details put into it here. I believe, and then a service as well. And you did mention autoscaling earlier. I just want to spend a second on this. We've got an autoscaling button right here where you can see I can configure some autoscaling rules. For example, maybe every time I hit 60% CPU utilization, I want to go up replica and I want to cap out at 3. Maybe that's a cost saving measure. I can set that up just by clicking save here, and I can add as many of these as I want. Maybe I want to scale up also every time I hit 70% memory utilization, and I want to allow myself to scale up to 30. Just like that, I click save. We've got a production application deployed to DigitalOcean with a CI/CD pipeline, dashboard to view everything that's going on, a metric stack, and auto scaling. And it's been, 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, Zeet is literally the missing GUI that everybody expects something like Kubernetes to come with, but it doesn't. And then there's such a large learning curve.
I think that's all the big pieces I wanted to show you here. We've got always an option to create another version of this project. I think we'll spend 10 seconds here just on the networking side. I know you were asking about custom domains and what that looks like. This is another piece where we try to make it as simple as possible. If all I have to do here is come in and say, here's the domain that I own, foo.digitalocean.com. Maybe they'll give me access to it. I click add, and Zeet gives me some instructions here on what I need to set up.
This little box that we have here, waiting for HTTP challenge, retrieving that specific log. I think for the first time when I first was playing with Kubernetes, it probably took me like 20 minutes to work out how to get that exact log.
Yeah, there's so much depth to Kubernetes. It's a very powerful tool. I'm a big fan of the power, but it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not the easiest thing to get started with.
You just have to rework your mind, and you're used to logs going in a certain place, for example, and then all of a sudden the logs are ephemeral, and you just have to. So yeah, just having this right there in front of you it's just such a time saver.
Exactly. I mentioned earlier that when you are provisioning these clusters, we're just running a Terraform template. These are public open source ones that we maintain. If I actually click on the clusters here and I go back to our cluster we created earlier, I glossed over this earlier, but in addition to all the services that we're deploying here, you can actually see the actual Terraform that we're deploying here. And if you'd like, eject it. This is a unique feature to Zeet where all of the pieces that we're maintaining for you, but we don't give you control over, you can click a button here and turn it into a Zeet project, in which case you can do everything you want to it. Since we're just deploying Terraform underneath, if you'd like to touch that Terraform, if you'd like to modify that Terraform, or have kind of a single source of truth for how your DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster is being deployed, maybe you want to turn on HA or otherwise configure it and break out of our opinions, you can click this Create Zeet project, and they will create it as a new project, and you can go and modify the Terraform yourself.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's really nice. So
We've gone ahead and we've got quite a bit spun up here just in this time together already. I'll click on the projects tab here, and we'll show you everything that we've created. So we created this webinar high-level group, within which we created this live subgroup with a Node Express demo API. I had previously pre-created a subgroup over here with a Node API and a Postgres that we'll deploy in a second here. Here within my live group, I can see I've got my Node Express demo deployed. I can see how to access it publicly, how to access it privately, and I can see there's a couple more domains if I click into it. We did multiple deploys with rolling deploys between them, and I tested the CI/CD system. We showed the metrics tab. I think the last piece we'll show here is going to be just deploy one more service. We'll click new again and click up into project, and so we'll actually show the one that we've created before. We'll deploy Postgres container. We have a number of ways that we can deploy Postgres container. In this case, we're going to do it via a Helm chart. You'll see this interface looks a little bit different here. This is going to be the Helm CI/CD deploy flow. If you're not familiar, Helm is just a package manager for Kubernetes. It packages up a lot of common types of workloads and resources and makes them very easy to deploy as one atomic interface or one atomic unit. We're using a Postgres Helm chart here. And I can see here, I deployed this actually last night, 14 hours ago. You can see that the deploy went through. I can see all of the plan logs. I approved this manually, and it applied on my cluster. Similar to the rolling deploy flow, I'll actually just click on the workflows and trigger a new workflow, and we can see what this looks like if we were deploying Postgres from scratch. So you'll see here, we're going to run through a 3-step plan, approve, apply workflow. I'll click into the deploy step here, and we'll watch the plan logs come in. It's going to be basically a description of all the things that are going to change on the cluster if we approve this. It should be fairly small, as we already have this service deployed. We don't expect much in here, but we'll give this a few seconds, and we'll see exactly what the plan is. All right. Got a lot of text in here. Walking us through what's going on, and looks like we didn't apply a new password, and so it's a little bit unhappy about that new plan being generated. No worries, we will stop the workflow there, and Zeet will let you know you can't go and do that illegal operation, and you'll see exactly why. While that new workflow didn't succeed, we still got the old one. It still did succeed. It's still deployed. Once again, we're keeping the last known version working, and so we've got that Postgres Helm chart deployed on the DOKS cluster. One last piece that I think I wanted to just touch on here. We've talked a lot about the complexity of Kubernetes. There's quite a lot in it. It's easy to make the wrong change, or easy to go in and tune some configuration value that you don't know kind of the downstream impact of. One additional value of having Zeet as a plane on top of your Kubernetes clusters, we have this button called revisions. You may have noticed it in some of the other projects as well, but anytime you make a configuration change, we are going to actually audit everything that's going on. So I can see a JSON version of my entire configuration for this project right here. If I make a new change to configuration, we'll create a new revision, and we'll show you a git diff-like view, so you can see exactly who changed what, when, where, and why, and roll back to old changes or to old configurations if something breaks unexpectedly.
Yeah, that's really powerful, and that's actually something that is, I think, you take for granted, the ability to see who changed what, because we work in a world now where we can see that in our Git repositories, but sometimes it kind of stops there, and we don't actually have visibility any further down the pipeline. So it's nice that that's kind of there, right in front of you.
Exactly. So I think we went through there, and hopefully that was a good view of how you can use DigitalOcean and Zeet together to first connect Zeet to DigitalOcean, provision a highly opinionated DOKS cluster, and then deploy a number of applications to it, both a Node.js API from GitHub as well as a Postgres container from Docker Hub, and see how they're all working, move them between clouds, look at logs and metrics, all in one simple interface. Hopefully Kubernetes isn't quite as scary, and you can get to building your next SaaS on DOKS.
Amazing. Thanks, Johnny and Jack. So again, that was the Zeet demo, and you guys heard a little bit about Zeet. We're a company based out of San Francisco. If you squint your eyes, you can see our office there. To get started, it's super easy. You can go to zeet.co/signup. And if you want to contact us, talk to an engineer on your team, you could on our team rather, you can go to zeet.co/contact. Thanks again. Thanks, DigitalOcean. We love the partnership we have together. This is awesome.
And we're going to go to a Q&A now, right? So if you advance, let's see if we have any questions here. I think we have a few coming up. So Giuseppe, I don't know if we answer his question or Giuseppe question. So
Yeah, I can talk about this. So
Yeah.
I don't believe that Zeet will solve this specific problem with Kubernetes where multiple nodes can't access the same storage. I mean, that's an underlying kind of infrastructure problem where that block storage, because it's block storage, it's only available to one node at any one time. So what you need to do is you need to implement a file-based storage, something like NFS. So we have a marketplace image for deploying NFS, for example, and Zeet would definitely make managing that a lot easier in terms of the logs and stuff like that. Johnny, I don't know if you have anything about this.
Yeah, I think pretty aligned there. I think the maybe nuance I would add, we do have a persistent volumes feature where we will automatically spin up a persistent volume for each pod. That is not the same persistent volume for each pod, so it's not a shared file system. It's multiple replicas of the same type of file system. We have seen some other teams who do this kind of read-write volume across multiple pods using persistent volume claims. We said this in the demo, but since Zeet is just managing your cloud, it's your Kubernetes, your cloud underneath, anything that you can find from Stack Overflow or anywhere else about having to solve some of these Kubernetes problems, you can do with us as well. So we've seen some teams who will do overrides in their pod specs to customize the file system further than what our UI provides. But I think the marketplace is a great call out, Jack. Really like playing well with the ecosystem, and everything that works in Kubernetes continues to work well with Zeet. We've just simplified a lot of the common activities.
That's great. If there are no more questions here on the queue, I want to thank you again, those who had a chance to join us live. So I hope you had made inspire new ways to look at how you can simplify the Kubernetes complexity across all the different elements. I think that Kubernetes is something so beautiful because it gives us the freedom, but also as a very famous character says, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So and we have now the ability to use Zeet as a complementary solution to help us make the most of that, right? So I want to thank you, those who also made questions to us during this live session, and most importantly, you that is eventually watching this recording. We're so proud, so happy to see you, investing a few minutes of your day and time to learn and grow your skills and become a better, Kubernetes admin or software SRE or a senior developer. So I'm so grateful to have a chance to speak with you, even through the recording. So also want to thank you, our presenters, and invite you to stay tuned. We are always hosting webinars like this, inviting guests from the industry to help us, grow and learn. So thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in other webinars. It's a pleasure to have you here. Bye, everyone.
There we go. Cheers.